Welcome to our Zootech channel. Today I'm going to take a topic on the respiratory system. What is the need for respiratory system? So as every cell in our body needs energy, every one of them needs oxygen, is it not? So the energy release is stored in a chemical compound called as ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, which contains 3 phosphate groups. When we need energy to carry out an activity, this ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, is broken down into ADP, that is adenosine diphosphate, containing only 2 phosphate groups. So, the breaking the chemical bond between the third phosphate group and the ATP releases a high amount of energy. So, for this, every cell should have the energy. Every one of them should need the oxygen. Fine. Now, talking about the respiratory system, it has got 2 zones. One you call it as conduction zone. The other one is the respiratory zone. What do you mean by conducting zone? Conducting zone means it brings the air from the external environment to the lungs through a series of tubes through which the air travels. So these are the, what you can say, the nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi and bronchioles. So these are the conduction of gases. And talking about the respiratory zone, it is found deep inside the lungs and it is made up of respiratory bronchioles, alveolar duct and alveoli. So the respiratory zone that exchanges the gases. How will you define respiration? Respiration can be defined as a physical process in which the oxygen is taken into the body and carbon dioxide is forced out from the body. Today we are going to deal with the important topic, the mechanism of breathing. So this is brought about by the 2 sets of muscles. One is the external intercostal muscles and the other one is the internal intercostal muscles. So apart from these 2 muscles, you do have a diaphragm and the abdominal muscles. First of all, just to understand what is the intercostal muscles and what is the main function of that. So the intercostal muscles are what? They are the 2 thin layers of muscle fibers occupying each of the intercostal spaces. What is the function of that? Functions, they are the several groups of muscles that run between the ribs and move the chest wall. So they are mainly involved in the mechanical aspect of breathing. So these muscles, what they do is they help to expand and shrink the size of the chest cavity to facilitate breathing. So this is intercostal muscles function. And talking about the diaphragm, what is diaphragm? How it will be? Diaphragm, it is a dome-shaped muscle which is situated below the lungs. So the main thing is that it separates the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity. The next subtopic will be dealt in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. So the process of breathing involves 2 phases. What are the 2 phases? One is called as inspiration, the other one is called as expiration. So how can you define inspiration? The inspiration means it is the inhalation of air into the lungs and is brought about by the chest expanding. So it takes place when the volume of the thoracic cavity, that is the chest cavity, increases and the air pressure decreases. So during inspiration, the external intercostal muscles contract and the internal intercostal muscles relaxes. So due to the contraction of external intercostal muscles, the ribs, they are being pulled upwards and outwards. So the muscles of the diaphragm contracts, which will lower the diaphragm. As a result, what is happening? The size of the thoracic cavity increases as well as the lungs expand simultaneously. So when you breathe in by enlarging the chest cage, the balloons expand as air rushes in to fill the vacuum. Alright, so as the lungs expand, the air pressure inside the lungs decreases. In order to balance the air pressure, air rushes from atmosphere into the lungs through air passage. So, we say the inspiration is the active process. Now, talking about expiration. How can you define expiration? It can be defined as the forcing of air out from the lungs, and it is brought about by the chest contracting. So, the internal intercostal muscles, they contract. Due to the contraction of these intercostal muscles, the ribs, they are pulled back to their normal position. So, the diaphragm relaxes and come to its original dome shape. As a result, what is happening? The size of the thoracic cavity is decreased and the size of the lungs also decreases. So, the air pressure will increase in the lungs. So, to equalize the air pressure, the air is expelled out from the lungs to the atmosphere through the respiratory tract. So, we say that expiration is a passive process as it does not require the expenditure of energy. Now, I will explain you the mechanism of breathing in a diagrammatic way. Mechanism. So here the diaphragm relaxes, it moves up. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the breathing mechanism in which the inspiration and expiration is depicted. So here talking about the inspiration, so during inspiration what is happening? The diaphragm, so when the air is inhaled, so the diaphragm and the external intercostal muscles, they contract, causing the rib cage to expand and move outward and expanding the thoracic cavity and the lung volume. So this is inspiration. So within the lung and the lung volume, so this creates a lower pressure. This is creating what? A lower pressure within the lung than that of the atmosphere, causing air to be drawn into the lungs. So this is the inspiration process. So during this expiration process, what is happening? When the air is exhaled, the diaphragm relaxes and it moves up and it comes to a dome shape. So the rib cage is getting smaller and the rib muscles, that is the internal intercostal muscles, are getting contracted. So what is happening? When these intercostal muscles are getting contracted, the ribs are pulled back to their normal position. Thank you. In the examination point of view, we would like to update some important question and answers. And meanwhile, please don't forget to subscribe our channel.